Hi, welcome to Conversations with Kit and Dawn. Today, we are going to talk about anxiety and how it may be holding you back in your life. I'm Kit Cassingham, a longevity coach with Live in Focused Energy. I love working with people who want to live with intention. I guide you to make the most of the years you have with lots of energy and joy, productivity, and that delicious sense of relevance. Whatever it is you have, I want it to be delicious. I was just talking about a restaurant, so I guess that came through. Don, who are you? Tell us about you.
Hey, I'm Don Downs of RV Business Coach. At RV Business Coach, I help people in the prime of their lives create fun, profitable, entrepreneurial businesses that are completely location independent so that they can enjoy the remote life. My particular passion and that of many of my clients is RVing, but we also cater to other styles of remote life like traveling the country or even the world and staying in hotels or Airbnbs or whatever floats your boat.
Did I tell you, Don, that my friends...
They could be boaters.
Well, it could be. It's a form of RV, but my friends three-generation family that's in Europe was going to be a year. We'll see how long it is. The RV they purchased couldn't get built because of the supply chain. There's one part after another kept missing it. So after a year or 4 months of forcing themselves to have fun on the Mediterranean coast and down in that part of the world, they decided just to go ahead and rent an RV rather than Airbnb it. And they're bouncing around Spain and Portugal right now.
That is cool. And I imagine while they were hung up waiting for this RV of theirs to finally be built and delivered, they were probably experiencing some anxiety.
You know, I suspect they were. They, of course, declined it. There was picture after picture of Big Old Rock, and they've said, our son is getting tired of Big Old Rock. So we're now going to move on to, and they changed the subject. They did get tired of the warm climate, and they took themselves skiing for a week or so. The nice things about RVing, they go for slow travel, and when you stop and park. This week's news.
That's what I like. Slow down, enjoy life. You don't, your typical vacation, it's like rush out as hard as you can drive to get to your destination, run around, do everything you possibly can while you're there because you don't know how long it's going to be till you get to come back, and then race back home and arrive back at work so tired you need a vacation from your vacation.
Yes.
But with the remote life, you can just slow it down. You can stay somewhere 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever, and just enjoy it. And when you get tired of that place, move somewhere else.
And I suspect some people find that anxiety producing too.
There is, it's like, even though it's by choice, there's certainly anxiety comes with every time you move, every time you do something different.
So today's topic is anxiety, as I've said, and we've said a couple times. I think of anxiety as one expression of fear, distress, uncertainty, and it's all kinds of things. This is maybe one of the most complex emotions that we have. When I was creating my fear class, I thought, because I talked about anxiety, and you go, well, I don't have that kind of fear. I'm not an anxious person, because I think of anxiety as the hand wringing and just, and that's not me. But I did discover other ways I express my anxiety, and we'll get to that later. Don, what do you see? How do you define anxiety? What is it in your lexicon?
That's a really great question. I think it's, I would define it as like a discomfort, potentially accompanied with fear, but a friction that comes from needing to do something or not do something and being in the other position.
Okay.
For example, this week, today is April 13th. In exactly 5 days, taxes are due. So I would imagine throughout the US, there are a lot of
5
people
days?
experiencing anxiety. Yeah, the 15th is a Friday, which is Good
Oh, I was
Friday,
going to
which is
say,
a DC holiday. And by law, they can't have taxes due on a DC holiday. So it bumps all the way out to Monday.
no wonder your math is different than mine. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it occurred to me today as I was working on my taxes, like, wow, this is something that brings anxiety to lots and lots of people. Um, and it's kind of an interesting thing because it's like, I'm not going to cheat on my taxes, but you always have that image of the big bad IRS just laying in wait for you to make a mistake so they can jump down your throat. And so that in and of itself is anxiety producing.
It is indeed.
It's
And
just
if you,
a fear of the unknown, I guess, is another way to look at anxiety.
or fear that the known could repeat itself anytime, anywhere, and that known is unpleasant.
Mhm.
I knew a woman who'd had a miscarriage, and that triggered
Mhm.
anxiety in her. And 30 years later, she was still real anxious.
I can see that.
That's not an anxiety type I have. So, all right,
Yeah.
that reminds me of the anxiety. But Corey, what do you think anxiety is?
I mean, I think I agree mostly with Dawn. I always view it as not only a fear of the unknown, but I mean, it could be induced by fear of failure also.
Mhm.
Just really, I guess, anything that pushes you outside of your comfort zone could in some way trigger anxiety.
Okay.
Because anxiety doesn't always have to be negative either. I mean, it's a positive, negative stress. You can have anxiety about something you're excited about just because it's something
Mhm.
unknown.
Right.
Mhm.
And you want it to be good and
Mhm.
wonderful, and you want it to meet your dream. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a
And
fear
like
of
you alluded to
your
a minute.
expectations of meeting reality.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Kit, you were talking earlier about how it manifests itself. It's like, I'm definitely feeling some anxiety around finishing up my taxes, but it's not the extreme anxiety, with the sweaty palms and the tightening of the chest and that kinds of things, which sometimes is a way that anxiety produces itself. Other times it's just kind of like, I don't know, it's hard to describe, a little nervousness throughout the body, a little tension throughout the body.
So that's a mild anxiety.
That's a more mild anxiety. And as Corey said, sometimes anxiety is good. I always think when I'm going to go give a public speech, I'd like to have a little anxiety. If I don't have some anxiety around it, I'm going to blow it. And I'm going to be flat. I'm not going to be fully into it and animated as much as I need and stuff. Because you don't want to go so far that, you can't breathe when you walk out on stage. But there is that, hey, this is actually a good thing that's spurring me to work through it, to work harder, to push for a positive result.
One anxiety that I used to have was walking over the sidewalk grates that mostly big cities have. And my joke to make myself feel better about the anxiety was, oh, I must have fallen through a grate like this in a previous life. I don't know what it was, but even in crowded New York City with the hustle bustle, I walked around the grate, would not walk across that thing. And if for some reason I couldn't get through the crowds, my whole core would clutch up and I'd make it across, but whew, it was distressing. So, well, we've talked a little bit about what causes anxiety. It could be good things, anticipating a birthday party, a wedding, a birth, any number of things. Taxes. I'll bet
Technology.
passing college tests could
Mhm.
cause some anxiety, no matter how well you know it. I've never had an advanced degree, so I can't be sure, but
Well, even in elementary school, the end of grade tests, the EOGs, cause a lot of anxiety in both students and teachers.
I didn't ever have
So
an EOG.
testing. Yeah, well, yeah, I didn't, but my kids do.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a newer thing than when you and I were in elementary school. But
Yeah.
Anytime you're pushing your envelope and stepping out on a limb, we were just talking about, can create anxiety.
Yeah.
Even if it's a positive change you're looking for. lack of sleep can play into it.
Say more about that, Don,
Um,
if you will.
Lack of sleep causes a lot of problems. And what I found, I've never found any scientific studies on this, but I've talked to several doctors and several therapists, and they all say, yeah, I think you're onto something here. What I call the death triangle, that there's sleep and anxiety or not really sleep, fatigue, anxiety, and depression, and they're all related. So any one of them can cause symptoms of the other. And then once you get those symptoms, it can cause symptoms of another. So, it's just like this death spiral of one of them causes them all to just keep spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. And my personal experience is often sleep is the root cause. If I'm not getting enough sleep, that's the fatigue factor that then plays into those other emotions. I know for a fact, lack of sleep can cause ADHD-like behaviors. So I've had a number of sleep neurologists tell me a lot of kids are misdiagnosed with ADHD when they really just have sleep disorders.
Sleep deprived, yeah.
Yeah. So, so I'm convinced if you're not getting enough sleep, it's very likely that you're going to feel anxiety around lots of things, maybe even things you don't normally experience anxiety around.
Well, and as you talk, I realize lack of sleep probably raises your cortisol, and that would be anxiety, cause that sensation of anxiety. Interesting. And that death triangle thing, each one of those points is a cortisol lifter. Okay. Interesting.
So then it makes sense that any one will affect the others. Just get into this
Right,
cortisol
right,
injection
right.
race.
Yeah. Technology produces some anxiety for me once in a while. And I have to, when I remember to slow down, take a deep breath, focus, I can generally maintain control. Corey, do you have any ideas also of what causes anxiety for you, maybe?
Well, I mean, day-to-day things, I think it's kind of like points to what you have just both said. But I think that another thing that I view as kind of just like background noise on the anxiety spectrum would be just how in tune we are with world events now because we have technology. And you can't ever shut anything off. So not only do you have anxiety inducing events in your own life, but when you do have a chance to step aside and breathe, you don't really ever deflate because then you're always worried about what's going on in the larger scale. So, I know for my wife and I, that's always something. We just don't watch the news. There's just no other way to try to turn it off. But.
I quit consuming news decades ago. And I've had people say, oh, well, how do you know what's going on? Who do you know who to vote for? Like, the world isn't going to come to an end. My life won't come to an end if I don't know what's going on. And when I'm ready to know
you're going to find out about it through some channel. So
yeah, you generally find out about it one way or another.
Yeah. But that brings up another thing that we see a lot is doom scrolling, which, it's like you have a few minutes of downtime, and instead of really relaxing and enjoying the downtime, you pick up your phone and you start looking at social media or scrolling through the news, which is anxiety producing. And then it's just a doom spiral, right? It causes that anxiety, but then that shuts you down where you don't want to do other things. So you just keep doing more of it. So, I definitely see doom scrolling as both a symptom and a cause of anxiety.
And do you think watching TV, reading the newspaper, that's part of doom scrolling? That's not just a Facebook activity?
It certainly could be, yeah. If you're addicted to the news, that's the equivalent, I think, of doom scrolling. And, so, yeah, I would say it's just a different format for it. But it's so easy with the phone, sit there with your thumb running down.
And Corey, I'm with you.
Avoid. I've heard about doom scrolling and the effect that it kind of actually ties together what you both had said. The doom scrolling tendency people have nowadays, or not doom scrolling, but just social media because they design it to be so capturing or captivating is, you're on your phone more. And then, that technology is now more and more available. So people tend to be on it a lot more frequently than they were. And the blue light that comes off of our devices wakes up parts of your brain. So if you do it right before you go to sleep, you don't sleep as well, or it takes longer to fall asleep. You're more sleep deprived. And there you have the start of your cycle there.
So I have a theory that the blue light is not so much the issue as the brightness of the light. So
Yeah.
I don't know, one of you guys can
I don't know. I
experiment
mean,
with me.
I don't have issues with blue light, but I know my wife, she had to get blue light filtering glasses for her computer at work because it gives her a headache. So it does do something different than other lights. And I know, some of our devices now, like they have options where it'll red shift after a certain time of
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
After 7 p.m. it'll do that. But I don't know. I don't know how much the blue light plays in, but I do know since getting blue light glasses, she hasn't had headaches at work anymore.
Well, that makes me wonder if there's something else at work that's causing that the blue light glasses are filtering out. Like there's a subtle flicker with light bulbs
Right.
sometimes, but
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, just when you have that blue light shift, the red light shift on your computer, don't try to do graphic design after it shifts.
Good point. Well, you can do the
All the colors are
design.
messed up.
You can
All
do
the
the
colors are
design.
messed up.
Just don't do the
Yeah.
colors. Yeah.
That's right. But,
Put the lines in and color in later.
yeah. So I don't know, kid. It's an interesting theory. I mean, I've read a lot about blue light and the blue light spectrum causing these problems. So,
Yeah.
I would tend to lean towards saying, yeah, there's something there, but it could be that it's a, kind of a red herring and there's actually another cause back behind it.
Right.
Certainly,
Or
anything's possible. So
like Corey,
a
it
good thing
doesn't
for more
affect
people to
me.
study.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't affect. Yeah. I know when I got these reading glasses, I got blue light filters added to them just because it
The
was
heck
easy to
of it.
do. And,
Yeah.
if it's a problem, I'll filter it out. So
Having the bedside light on, which is even on dim, is brighter. And that bothers me more than a subtle light. So I read on my phone. So, and I guess I have the blue light filter on, but oh well. I'm going to throw in, because I do longevity, that your diet can also impact your anxiety levels. Have either of you ever experienced anxiety when you've eaten a bad diet, a poor diet? Or
like
maybe
when I
you
have
guys
Coke
don't
and a
ever eat
brownie,
a bad diet. What'd you say, Don?
like when I have a Coke and a brownie.
Uh-huh. And French fries. Don't forget the French fries. Yeah. And a milkshake.
Yes. Very healthy meal there.
Yeah.
Milkshake and fries with a brownie for dessert. And a Coke to wash it all down.
Corey, do you eat clean so you don't know what we're talking about?
We try to eat as clean as we can. I do know that, we're not great. We maybe don't eat what we should once or twice a week, but I think that when that happens, it has a tendency, just if you're not eating clean, it can draw down your energy, I find.
Yeah.
It makes you
For
more
sure.
sluggish. And so, especially related to what Don was saying with this triangle of fatigue, sleep deprivation, and depression, if you're eating something that makes you feel sluggish, well, then you're already contributing towards, you're moving towards that. So.
Right. And part of the weird triangle is it is easier to eat clean when you have more energy. At least what I find, if I'm already fatigued, it's way easier to fall into something fast that I know is horrible for me, but it's easier than, putting together something good. So, and then again, it just spirals on itself. So, I keep coming around. Have we done one on sleep, Kit? Because, it's like sleep is the root cause of everything.
If it's not sleep, it's food. No, we haven't done one on sleep. You want to?
We'll add that to the list. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Let me look at my list. Let's see. Well, Corey, so you touched on one that I had considered, and that is world events cause anxiety. We've got climate change with the rising tides and the this and the that. We've got shootings in subways. We have, or movie theaters, and we have wars, and we have all kinds of crazy stuff. And then we get these election things going on,
which never stop anymore.
It's always election season. And then there's football season and soccer season, and basketball season, and hockey season. Don't those things cause anxiety because your team's winning or not winning? Or
yes. And in fact, I used to be the world's biggest football fan. I loved football. I grew up in the South, so it makes sense. And now I hardly ever watch it. You know, it's like my extent of sports now is wait until after the game's over and then look it up and either go yippee or bummer and move on, you know. So because I found that I was spending, 3-4 hours in front of the TV, expending a lot of mental and physical and emotional energy because, you're cheering for your team and screaming at the ref and all of that stuff. And then at the end of it, whatever happened, and I have zero control over it. I don't
Right.
recruit the players. I don't coach the players. I have no impact on them. And yet I'm spending all of this energy around it. So for me, that's something I've really stepped back from because it was just an unnecessary cause of anxiety.
Yeah. Well, and that's the funny part. The things we're anxious about, we typically have zero control over. The Dalai Lama's way of resolving things is he thinks about what can he control. And if he can't, he doesn't worry about it. And if he can't control it, then he doesn't worry about it. Pretty simple. Oh, and Don, I don't want to cause any anxiety for you, but from my perspective, you do live in the South still.
True. True. Although now I'm in the ACC instead of the SEC, so it's not quite as bad.
I think you said something intelligent there, but I have no idea what it was.
I'll just say this. In the South, football is a religion and Saturday is the holy day.
I understand now. Okay. Corey, are you a sports or football fanatic?
I'll watch the Super Bowl.
Do you watch it for the commercials?
No, like I'll watch it for the game, but I'm more opportunistic. Like Allie's dad really likes football, so if we happen to be at their house and there happens to be a game, we'll watch a part of it. But we don't really follow it.
You don't leave parties early because there's a game somewhere.
No.
Okay. Good. All right, so that covers my list of what causes anxiety. So
I think we covered all.
Let's look back about what does anxiety look like? We've touched on it a little bit, but let's see if we can expand on it. Wringing of hands.
Yeah. I wrote down feeling anxious. That's pretty obvious, right? How does anxiety show up? Why feeling anxious?
Can you say more, Don?
I think I was thinking in terms of like you're saying, the little physical tics, like wringing your hands or, possibly even constriction in the chest, having trouble breathing, sweaty palms, physical sensations that can be a manifestation of that, of the underlying anxiousness.
And that could be true of the positive or the negative causes of anxiety.
Yeah, we tend to think of it more on the negative side, but it could be the positive side as well.
Do you remember when you got married? Were you feeling anxious?
Oh no, I was excited.
But we've said you could be anxious when you're excited or excited when you're anxious.
Yeah. I think the anxious part for me was getting to the ceremony because there was a lot of construction and, it's like, am I going to be late to my own wedding? And then our priest was, so actually when the priest is pastor. So there's some anxiousness around the process of getting there, but the actual process of marriage, I was overjoyed. So I don't remember much anxiousness around that.
Does it seem like excitement maybe is a form of anxiety though also? Maybe not, I always think of anxiety as like, well, I'm anxious because, something bad might happen or this or that. I'm dreading it. Excitement is I am anxious for that to happen. I want that to happen. I'm excited for it. I mean, it's just maybe the flip side of it.
So I'm hearing that's how you approached your wedding.
Well, I mean, I was excited. I'm just trying to think, like we just said, anxiety can be positive. So maybe excitement is
they feed each other.
Manifestation of what we typically think of as anxiety.
Curious thought.
I had an anxiety producing moment, and it was not out of excitement. At my maternal grandmother's funeral. She was late to her own funeral, because the mortuary got the time confused, and I was
Great story. Late to your own funeral.
it was typical of my grandmother. But I went to the hearse to get her box of ashes. And I thought, oh, are there cameras here? I feel like I'm about to make a Monty Python skit. I'm going to trip. She's going to fall and blow all over the place. I was so anxious that I wouldn't trip coming down the hill. And I didn't do it, but that was an amusing anxiety. I mean, I was giggling at the same time going, watch your feet, watch your feet.
That's I'm afraid I'm fixing to mess up anxiety.
Yeah. And people are
Fear of
watching.
failure anxiety.
People are watching.
Fear of
And
embarrassment anxiety.
yeah, yeah.
I'm really intrigued by Corey's thought that excitement is just a different manifestation of anxiety. It's a more positive version.
I like that too. Do we want to explore that a little more?
Sure. Because I find it a really intriguing thought. I had not thought of it that way, but I can see how it kind of is. It's the same thing, right? It's an emotional reaction to change. It's just you believe it's going to be a positive change.
So it doesn't come out of fear, which is how I started this conversation. That I think of anxiety as being fear-based, but excitement isn't. It's
Right.
joy-based.
Yeah, it seems like it just flips the perspective, right? It's not I'm anxious because, or I'm anxious about. It's I'm anxious for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I look forward to.
All right. So let's apply that to Don's butterflies when he's doing public speaking. Don, you're excited about the chance to give a public presentation. That's a mindset you can switch.
That is a mindset. You know, the way I usually feel of it is I'm nervous. In fact, that's usually what I say rather than anxiety. A certain amount of nervousness is good before going on stage. But that nervousness, I think, comes from anxiety. But it's an interesting perspective if you stop and think, okay, if I have this nervous anxiety, why not flip it into an excitement anxiety and be looking forward to getting out on stage and sharing my message?
Yeah.
It's a cool thought.
One speech class I took, the instructor talked about that nervous stomach as the butterflies we get in our stomach. And he said the anxiety you can teach those butterflies to fly in formation, which maybe that adds more excitement to the prospect also. Corey, do you do public speaking?
Yeah, I do a fair bit, just presentations and seminars and colloquiums and yeah.
And do you approach them with nervousness, anxiety, excitement?
I think it depends on my crowd. I would say I'm always nervous to some degree.
Okay.
But you know, I gave for perspective on that, you know, I have 2 conferences I'm going to and presenting in May. I'm not really sure how big the room will be, but I've done a number of these types of conferences before. This will be my first industry conference compared to an academic conference. But I find it more nerve-wracking to get up in front of a room of 30 people than, like, I gave a webinar presentation of some research I'd done a month and a half ago. And there were 140 people on the call, but I was much less nervous because I can't see all these people. I think it's just depends on the setting also, you know.
So if you were in a room with 140 people, would you be as nervous as in a room of 30? Would you be more nervous, less nervous?
I don't know. That's a good question. I feel like at some point you just kind of peak. Like, okay, well, there's 50 people, there's 500 people. It's still a lot of people. It doesn't really matter at some point how many there are. I still just have to come to terms with the fact that I know all these eyes are on me. I think it kind of depersonalizes it a little bit when it's a webinar. It's like there could be 1 million people, but I'm still sitting in my office alone in front of my computer,
staring at one person or one whatever. Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking in
I
live,
think
it's almost kind of a U-shaped, because when there's only a handful of people, that's pretty, you know, because it's like you're going to get immediate feedback from everyone in the room with no effort whatsoever, right? And so, and it's uncomfortable, you know, so I think there's a little anxiety there. And then as a group gets to a critical mass, it kind of evens out. And then, like you said, as it grows, you reaches a point where it just levels off, and the difference between speaking to 140 and 175 or 200 people is not that big a deal.
Interesting. Well, Corey, next time you give a speech or presentation, change the nervousness to excitement and see how you do.
Okay.
And if you flub up, you can say, well, Kit told me to do it that way.
That was Kit's fault. Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
put
it's
your
Kit's
number
fault.
up on the screen.
What's that?
I'll put your phone number up on the screen. They can call you and complain if it's an awful thing.
If
Please
you're not happy
do.
with the presentation, call this number and let her know.
Yeah. Sometimes when I get anxious, or when I'm seeing other people get anxious, they get real cranky. I don't know. I guess it's like a smoke screen. I don't want you to see the real me, so I'll be cranky or snarky or something. Is that
I
anything?
think that's a common reaction.
Okay.
I've seen it in others and felt it in myself.
Okay. Poor productivity can be a result of this anxiety. I think we freeze ourselves, get locked up inside, maybe, either in our brains or our core. And that's what's that, Corey?
I was just going to ask, but finish your thought, please.
Well, I think that when I get real anxious on stage, my brain historically has gone blank. I'm working on some things so it will quit doing that.
Yeah.
And that's not a fun anxiety to have when you're supposed to be dumping all this information, and all of a sudden you go, I don't know anything.
I was just going to add, I think good productivity can be the result of, and at times the cause of, anxiety. Right? If you haven't been productive enough because of procrastination, that can lead to anxiety, which could then make you look less productive moving forward also.
Well, and why is that, do you think?
Why we procrastinate, or why it makes you anxious?
Why does our poor production increase our anxiety?
I mean, at least for me, so like when I think like for work, for instance, I have 5 deadlines this week, and I need to be sure I'm hitting like checkpoints along the way to be sure I'm getting there and I'm going to finish everything in time. If I have a day where I don't hit that, now those 5, let's say I had 5 days to do it, I have to do 5 days of work in 4 days time. And that's going to increase anxiety. If I do it again, I have to do 5 days of work in 3 days time. And it just piles up.
And then you're doing all 4 of your 5 days in one day.
Right.
Okay. So.
Yeah. And that's a funny feeling, right? Because you've got that anxiousness saying, I'm in trouble, I'm behind, I need to do this. And yet often the procrastination still continues.
Yeah,
make it worse.
Or maybe even worse. Yeah. Because you get analysis paralysis and it's hard to get started. But I read a thing the other day I found really interesting, saying, and Kit probably knows more about this than I do, but saying people with ADHD need the stimulus to get them going. And so often it looks like they're just procrastinating until they get to the point where there's enough pressure, enough anxiety around having to do this, that now they have the motivation and can go do it. And so it's a wiring of the brain that keeps them from moving forward until there's a pressure on it. And then they're like, they can hyper focus and get it done.
Well, and Don, with my flavor of ADD, the pressure of getting close to that deadline does more of that freezing up stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I never pulled an all-nighter in college. It makes you wonder if I really went to college. And if I was as late as typing my paper the night before it was due, I would get distressed. That would cause anxiety. So I was usually done typing my paper a day or two ahead of time.
I've never done anything to know if I have ADD, ADHD, whatever, but I do know I am motivated by deadlines. I need a deadline, because if it's too abstract, if it's something that's like, oh, well, this is something that I'll have to do at some point, but that's 6 months from now. I'll figure that out in 6 months. I have more pressing things. I think the anxiety for me then comes if, like, I will procrastinate something until I feel the pressure that I need to do it. But then if my deadline or if my productivity gets pushed back farther. Like if I'm not deciding anymore that the procrastination is necessary, that's where I get more anxiety, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's Parkinson's law, which says that the work will expand to fulfill the available time. So if I gave you 6 weeks to write a report, it would take you 6 weeks to write the report. If I gave you 2 days, it would take you 2 days. If I gave you 3 hours, you would do it in 3 hours, right? And the quality of the report is probably similar. So that's the thing to be aware of as we play with those deadlines and anxiety is, sometimes I find it helpful to put an artificial deadline on just so, because I don't want to be, up at the very end. But
And I
so yeah,
believe in
that deadline anxiety can be a positive or a negative. Like Kit said, it can cause a block. It can cause you to make really bad decisions because you just can't stop and think them through. So you make snap decisions. It can do the opposite and bring analysis paralysis, where you just think and think and think and work and work and work, and you can never make the decision about what needs to be done. So it's an interesting play that can work for you and against you.
And I believe in Murphy's Law. If something will go wrong, or can go wrong, it will. So I like to have
And then
my
there's
plan.
the corollary that says Murphy was an optimist.
Well, so I have my plan and then a backup plan, and I, and still get it done ahead of time. So when Murphy steps into the room, it still all falls into place as it should. That's
You're a
worked
good
well
planner.
for me through the years.
Yeah.
So how do you guys deal with anxiety when it descends upon you? All right, I'll jump in.
Sure.
I have a tool that I created for my Transforming Fear class. It's called Capo. Do you guys know what a capo is? It's a device that you strap onto a stringed instrument like a guitar neck, and it raises the pitch of the notes, the music, the tones. Capo, in my case, is an acronym that stands for curious. I've just changed it. Accept and adapt, present and open. And when you apply those 4 letters to the situation, get curious about, why is this a problem? What can I do? What are some ways around it, over it, under it, through it? And then accept it's there and adapt to it. Get present with yourself and be open to possibilities. That the anxiety, well, it was designed around fear, but I've already said, I think anxiety is a reflection of fear. That it eases and resolves it for me. I found it helping with any number of situations in my life, positive, negative, anxious, excited, whatever.
I think that's a great strategy. I was just about to say the first step of dealing with it is recognizing it and confronting it, which falls right into capo, right? You need that curiosity to go, what's going on here? Oh, this might be anxiety manifesting itself. And then accept it and realize it can be good. So the curiosity comes back into play. Well, if this is happening to me, why is it happening? And how, is it something that I can turn into something good, or is it because of something good about to happen? So I think your strategy is pretty sound.
Okay. Did I hear you saying something, Corey?
Oh, I was just gonna say it. One of the things that comes to mind immediately when I think about what causes anxiety for me is where I have a whole laundry list of things that need done, or it's a very big project with multiple pieces, and I think the anxiety comes from me trying to figure out how to eat the whole pie in one bite. And what I try to do then is step back and figure out, well, what's the first bite I can take that's reasonable size that I can actually accomplish and digest, and then keep moving forward. And so then, you ease it a little bit in your mind just by telling yourself it's not something you have to do all at once. And then also, whenever I see forward progress, that helps alleviate some anxiety too.
Indeed. Yeah. So take it step at a time. And when I was kayaking on a reservoir one day, I was kayaking into the wind, and I was looking at where I was going, and paddling to beat the band. I felt like I'm never going to get anywhere. And I happened to look at the far shore to my right, And I saw that I actually made a lot of progress.
Mm-hmm.
And so changing your perspective can help. And I came up with an alternative plan of, if I can't paddle against the wind, I'll paddle to the shore and drag my boat, and it'll triple, but I can walk back if I have to.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like being in the middle of the ocean where there's no shore in the middle, but yeah. So yeah, step at a time, or paddle at a time, or whatever, bite at a time.
Right.
Okay. But
Another
the
thing I
deep,
found helps is to,
go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
The deep breath is real
That's just
important.
what I was going to say.
Okay, go for it. You talk about it. Be that way.
I was just going to say, I found it helps to take slow, deep breaths, just inhale big and maybe hold it and then exhale. And that just kind of slows down all of the systems and lets you regain control. I've heard of an exercise where it says to inhale pink and exhale blue. Inhale pink, exhale blue. And then I get confused because maybe it's that you're supposed to inhale blue and exhale pink. So is
And then
it
you get
pink in and
anxious.
blue out, or blue in and pink out? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. This isn't working. It's making me more tense.
Don, it's yellow and purple that you breathe in and out.
Maybe that's it. ECU colors.
Silver and gold would be the Colorado University colors. But anyway,
There you go. Black and gold for me.
well, that's what CU's changed to all of a sudden. It's like, what's this black and gold? What happened to silver and gold? But all right, Corey, what are your colors?
Well, OSU scarlet and gray,
Ooh, nice.
CSU green and white.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, another thing we can do when we get anxious: call friends and family, which is a change of perspective, a change of energy. It's a slowing down of the breath. You might get to laugh. Ooh, laughter is a good anxiety buster. When I get anxious, I get overly silly. I mean, there's the regular silly, like you guys have seen today. And when I'm super anxious, it goes over the top. So if you see me over the top, go, kid's anxious today.
She needs to take a deep breath.
Inhale pink, exhale blue.
Yellow, silver, and gold. What else?
And one thing similar to what you just said about calling a friend or family along those lines, just call someone who can give you a different perspective on things. It might be a friend, it might be a family member, might be a therapist, it might be if you have a life coach, but someone who can help you step back and reframe what you're looking at and help you calm down.
Ooh, I wonder if we could talk to strangers. If you're out in the middle of somewhere, stop somebody and say, I've got this dilemma. I'm feeling really anxious. Can you talk to me about it?
You can try. You might get some strange looks. You might or might not get the results you're looking for. But,
That's all right.
If there's no one else around, give it a try, I guess.
People you're talking to?
No, you don't. Well, you'll find out as you talk to them who they are. I'm not sure what you said, Corey. Sorry.
I just said you might induce anxiety in the people you're trying to talk to. If they don't know who you are.
Right.
Yes. And then they can go talk to a stranger, and then the whole world is anxious within a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So here's one, and I think we're getting close to the end, but here's one last thought about anxiety. What about training yourself to be more positive and optimistic, so that when a negative thought and anxiety comes in, you say, hold on, this is going to work out. I'll get the report done. I'll get the speech done. I'll get the party, the wedding, the whatever done. It'll all work out fine. It'll all come out for the best. Have either of you tried that?
Yeah, I think that an important characteristic to have when you do that is patience. So you need to learn patience, because that's something like I just thought of buying a house, right? We want to buy a house, but it's a crazy, crazy market. So yeah, I mean, eventually I'm sure we'll get a house, but we want it now.
When the market chills, yeah. Well, you could buy a tiny home.
You could. Yeah.
Buy an RV and live in it. But yeah, Kit, that retraining your brain is a very valuable thing. And I guess it was earlier this year, I read Soundtracks by John Acuff, which is largely about that. He calls those thoughts running in your head soundtracks because they play over and over and over.
Yeah.
And that was part of what he mentioned. One thing he mentioned, similar to what Corey's saying, is don't think of it as having to eradicate those thoughts. Just turn down the volume. You know, it's much easier to envision turning the volume down on them than totally eradicating them, because when they come back, if you're trying to eradicate them, it's like, oh, I'm a failure, I didn't get rid of that thought, right? But if you just go, oh, there it is again, let me turn the volume back down. And then, you know, he says on those, when those thoughts pop in your mind, ask yourself the three big questions. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it helpful? Funny, it's the same thing we tell our teams to ask before posting on social media, but, you know, analyze the thing. Is this true? Really? Is it really true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? Yeah. And then flip it, you know, and like you were just saying, find a way to flip it into a more positive soundtrack that you can listen to. So really,
I had two people in my life who were looking for jobs at the same time. My sister and a longtime friend. And my sister's attitude was, the right job will come. And if it doesn't, I'm fine. She didn't seem to have any anxiety about it. And my friend, my sister's a friend too, but the other person, the non-sister friend, would say, I put out 3 job applications. I had 3 interviews, and I'm just never going to get this job. They didn't hire me. And I said, chill. The right one is just waiting for you. Just keep putting yourself out there, and it will jump on you and hug you, and you'll have it. It was a week or 2 later that he got a great job. And now he's going, this is beyond my capability. I can't do this. So, chill, you can.
Anxiety prone.
He is anxiety prone. And he says, I have a great boss who's a great teacher. This is a hard programming language I'm learning. And I'm learning great things by being with him. So I see optimism. Corey, are you optimistic and positive in your life? And does it help your anxiety?
Yeah, I think maintaining a good perspective is really important. I mean, there's always times, obviously, when it slips and you have to remind yourself to change how you're thinking. But yeah, I think it's really important, definitely.
And Don, how optimistic and positive are you?
Generally, I'm a positive, optimistic person, with some exceptions the last few years. But so yeah, generally I think that's the true me, is the positive, affirming person.
Okay. Yeah, I tend to run very optimistic and positive. And when that negative voice gets in there, I go, hold on. Something's making you anxious. Back off, find the positive, find the optimistic angle, and let it go. And that works for me most of the time. So, all right. Don, would you like to, do you have anything for our guests? Do you have a call to action? Or?
Sure. Just, I always enjoy getting to know people better and figure out if there's ways we can help each other. So I invite people to a virtual coffee, and it's just virtualcoffeewithdon.com. If you'd like to sit down and chat for 30 minutes and, you know, figure out, learn a little about each other. What are you doing? You know, are there ways we could collaborate and make life easier for each other, share network, share information, whatever. It's always a good time. So it's virtualcoffeewithdon.com if you'd like to sign up.
And that URL will be in the comments and below. And you are the RV business coach, excuse me.
RV business coach. Yep. RVbusinesscoach.com.
All right. I am offering a free, I keep calling it webinar, which shows how long I've been online, a free Zoom call called Energize Me. And there you're going to learn 7 tips to help you get and keep your vibrant, productive, and alert self going. The details, and of course it is leading to a class, but the details of when I'm offering these class, the free webinar, I'll be posting. So if you're interested in this hour and a half long session, let me know and I will send you the details when I have them nailed down. And that is, if you like what you're seeing in that hour and a half, then there will be a course coming where we'll go deeper into the topics. So I'm Kit Cassingham, a longevity coach with Live in Focused Energy. I love working with people who want to be intentional with their life and make the most of their health, joy, productivity, etc. So when you're ready, energize me.